I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently. Whether you feel stuck in survival, navigating a change, or seeking more for your life, may this podcast be your weekly nudge to take a risk to build a life that is uniquely bold, authentic, and in alignment with your deepest values. After a decade of coaching individuals from corporate leaders to creative artists to multi-million-dollar CEOs, I'm convinced we are far closer than we realize to what we deeply desire, and it's a willingness to do differently that can change everything. Hey, Differently listeners, I think you've probably heard me say it before, but I feel like I am a recovering workaholic. Busyness consumed my mind and my time for years. I ran from minute to minute with time on my back, trying to fit in as much as I could. I worked hard to get better and faster so I could stuff more doing into my life. It seemed that if I could just fit in enough doing, it would one day be enough, and that would mean I was enough. While my life was full and somewhat put together on the outside, I was bankrupt and empty on the inside. And the day I finally admitted this truth to myself was the day things began to take a far different and more fulfilling shape. I knew there had to be a better way to living life, but I didn't have a clue how to get there. I made it my mission to figure out a different way. And in today's episode, I'm sharing 3 new ways of thinking that I had to adopt in order to create a way of doing life that was far more meaningful. And I want to share those with you. Number 1, the endless to-do list does not lead to fulfillment. I had to come to grips with the fact that no amount of checked off items on my to-do list would lead to the deeper level of fulfillment I craved. I was in the wrong lane to reach that destination, and this path I had been on was a dead end, or rather a bottomless pit. The lure of the list is so compelling and creates a convincing illusion that once we get these things complete, the milestone checked, we will at last have arrived and feel like we've done enough, and more importantly, are enough. In reality, the good feelings were only fleeting, and to sustain them required me jumping back into the never-ending spin of doing. Accepting the reality of what I was doing is the very thing that allowed me to stop doing more and start doing differently. Number 2, enough, I'm doing air quotes, is an inside job. Up until this point, I'd focused on the outside. I had diligently spent enormous amounts of energy attempting to line things up on the outside. Job, spouse, get married, get a house, and on and on and on, thinking that if enough things lined up, I'd feel better. That didn't work. I began to see that my continued obedience to the list was never ending and guaranteed more of the same. I saw for the first time that I would need to cultivate enough inside before I could ever feel enough on the outside. And so I began tending the inside bit by bit. Number 3, new way of thinking I had to adopt was to start to enjoy the to-do lists for what they are. Instead of letting them run my life, I had to change my relationship to them. You can do this too. Your to-do lists are a tool to empower you, not run you ragged. I love lists, and I still make lots of lists. The difference is the list is no longer running my life, but is a tool to keep me organized in my life. A client recently had a similar insight and beautifully said this in her journal. Quotes, I am recognizing that I need to change my perspective on my list. Instead of overpowering me, it needs to empower me. In summary, if you're ready to move beyond busy, here's 3 things. 1, upgrade your to-do lists. Number 2, instead of worrying about doing enough, cultivate an inner life that is enough. Incorporate quiet time to reflect, prayer, meditation, journaling, and so on. And number 3, Enjoy your to-do lists, but remember, they don't get to run your life. You do, and they're a tool to empower you in doing that. Busy is a choice, and if you want to move beyond busy, but it feels nearly impossible, go to carlareeves.com and schedule a call with me. This is my life's work to help hyperachievers and high achievers get out of busy survival so they can build a life intentionally. Have an incredible day, Differently listeners. I look forward to seeing you soon. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, be sure to hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please help us spread the word and pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.